If you're in the UK, good evening. If you're in the US or Canada, good afternoon.
And if you are in Australia or Japan, konnichiwa, good morning.
On today's show, we spoke to Gareth Angel Thompson, who's got an amazing backstory. I can't wait to get into this. But first, intern, roll that intro. I just want to check something, Karen. Are you okay? Because I know it's late for you at the moment.
It is late, as in we're doing a pre-recorded episode. It is 2 a.m. in the morning, and I thought I'd wake up to do this show for you guys here with our awesome host, our awesome guest. Gareth Angel Thompson.
Of course. Now, Gareth, how are you, my friend? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 10 a.m. for us, so I'm bright and peachy. My kids have gone to school. I've had a coffee and a bit of breakfast, so I'm ready to rock and roll. But bless you, brother, for getting up so early in the morning to be a part of this.
I feel like the things are all switched on us here, Liam, where I'm the guy who's staying up late now because I've got him up usually at 11 o'clock for our paranormal podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Now, Gareth, you've got we've been wrestling fans for years, and you've got one of the most amazing backstories we've ever come across. Now, we've got a little clip to show, obviously, from the BBC thing. So, do you want to introduce it a little bit, and we'll play it?
So, is this the documentary that went out on BBC Two? BBC One. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a little clipping from it. So, do you want to introduce it a little bit?
Yeah. So, last year we were approached by the BBC, who heard a little bit about what we were doing with GT Ministries. We were looking at launching a wrestling church, which is pretty phenomenal. And as part of that, they really wanted to dig into me and my backstory, where I've come from and how GT Ministries came to be, how we've somehow paired faith and wrestling together. And so they met my family. They were kind of really dug into my life and my past as a part of that, and then they put that on national television for everyone to see.
Awesome.
And it's still on the iPlayer now if you want to check it out. So let's roll the clip. This should be interesting.
The two main things that have helped me get my life back on track have been wrestling and the church. Wrestling was a massive escape for me as a kid. I remember when I was going through some really rough stuff, and it just captivated me. The driving force behind the training school, using my past to help others by bringing them into the school and helping them through those struggles and issues that I had as a kid.
I was suffering from severe depression from the ages of 14 to 22, with various bouts thereafter. It was really bad.
Aha! Get go!
It's the camaraderie, it's the teamwork. Like, I made friends here. I don't make friends easily.
It's all about inclusivity for everyone.
It raises my spirits. I come out of there feeling spiritually nourished, but I feel great about myself. And it brings out that creative side of me that makes me feel alive.
If I can get on stage as a depressed, obese, middle-aged man and still put on a cracking show, you can do what you want to.
This is Raw!
What's that like watching that back?
Oh, I love it. I'm just I come alive for this kind of stuff. Anything that can get wrestling and faith onto mainstream television, I think is special and amazing. To me, it kind of validates everything that we're doing. It means that people have seen that, and people are still coming up to me even now. I went to a coffee shop recently to do some video interviews, and this guy come over and he goes, are you Gareth Angel? I was like, yes, I am. He said, I saw your BBC thing. And this is in like a Tiffin's coffee shop. He's like, have you got any posters we can put up for your shows? And I was like, yeah, sure. And brought some stuff over, and I got a free coffee out of it. So, you can't,
That's awesome.
can't go wrong.
I love the fact that you got free coffee out of that. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously I've seen the documentary. I think it's an
when I
amazing
was
one.
in ministry, we would go to the coffee shop, me and my coworker, and we'd go in, and there'd be this big line, and because we were doing youth ministry, the teenagers all knew us, so they just brought us a coffee, and we got like special treatments.
Nice.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So yeah, obviously I've seen the documentary. Now you were very open, obviously, about your upbringing, and one of the things was you was made homeless. What was that like for you personally? Do you know, going through that, because that must have been difficult?
Yeah, I think that becoming homeless was just one of many things that happened in my childhood. Obviously, the documentary covers quite a variety of that stuff. I think really at the time, I was in survival mode. Really, it was a case of I'm on the streets. No one's going to let me in. My family have kind of all said, "No, we're sticking with what your mum said. We're not letting you in." My grandmother, who was the one person I thought I could go to, was in Wales, and there was no way I was getting there. So I just kind of had to do what I had to do. So it was a case of, right, guys, knuckle down and do what we can. And that was, stealing from places to feed myself. It was being able to crack tins open on the corners of walls to be able to eat cold beans. It was, finding the best place to sleep. And I luckily came across a skip, which recently I did some work in some homeless ministry, and there was a bunch of guys who I was talking to about where they were sleeping, and they were saying, "Oh, we're in tents behind this, or we're kind of under bridges, or we're here and there." And I was like, "Have you ever thought about getting in a skip?" Because it was warm, it was dry, it was cardboard and polystyrene, it was safe to a degree. And so I kind of felt like an expert in homelessness because I had to be,
But
do
you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So were you homeless due to drug use or just other reasons?
No, my mum just threw me out. My mum had a massive alcohol issue, and she was very aggressive towards me and my brothers, so much so that my middle brother got taken into care. Got taken into, I don't know what you would call them in America, but kind of the youth services, and kind of passed around foster homes and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was 15, my mum had kind of, so there's a few, there's backstories behind the stories. So obviously the BBC can only put so much in half an hour, but you've got the real deal kind of guy here, so I can give you some extra context. My mum had actually disappeared for a couple of months and taken my younger brother with her to go stay with one of her boyfriends at the time. So while she was gone, I was cashing her gyros, which were kind of like the benefit payments back in the day, because I'd done that already. I was buying the gas and electric for the house on the tokens. I was doing the food shop because I had to do all that anyway, because my mum was just drinking all the time and I was looking after my brothers. So she was gone and I was just running the house and going to school. And then I wanted to earn a bit of extra money, so I got a job as a window cleaner and doing a paper round. And when my mum come home, she realized I started earning some money, which to her, she then felt, oh, well, if he's earning money, I'm going to lose the benefits, which is what I assumed was going through her head. So she was like, well, you think you're a big man now, you think you've grown up enough to work, out you go. And she just threw me out in the streets, literally bagged my clothes up and lobbed them out the window, and just locked the door on me and was like, you're gone. Called the police on me to get me off the garden. And I was 15 at the time. So I'm 35 now, so we're talking 20 years ago. There wasn't much support for 15, 16-year-olds then. So I'm kind of on the streets with no kind of service, or, there's nothing going on that could just pick me up and put me somewhere, until I turned 16. So then when I turned 16, which is the beginning of August, so I was out of the house sometime early June. So I had the 8 weeks. August came around. I'd missed all my exams, so I've got no GCSEs whatsoever. I because it was exam season, so I got none of my exams because I was on the streets. And I then got put into a B&B kind of bed and breakfast in Shipley, near where I live. And then I got moved to a hostel. shortly thereafter, and then I was put in a hostel. And in there was drug use, there was self-harming, there was people stealing from each other. That was a really rough place. You know, we're talking like seasoned criminals and people who were in there. So I had to fight, I had to scrap, I had to defend myself. I was bullied at school, so all that kind of came along. So I'm naturally a fighter. So stepping between the ropes is a nice progression in a way of doing it in a safe, controlled environment. But you know, my upbringing was you had to fight to survive, so I had to learn how to fight, and you know, that just came with the territory.
Absolutely. I've got to ask, what obviously kept you going through all this at the time?
It's interesting because I wouldn't have considered myself a Christian then. I wouldn't say I had faith then. I've done a lot of self-development in like the past like 10 years, and I've read a lot of books, and I've tried to understand what my past has done to me and how I've reacted and all the kind of psychology behind it. I would say at that time it was my absolute dogged determinedness, like to be like, I will not let this put me down. I'm going to show you. You're going to throw me out. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get in this hostel. I'm going to be the leader of the pack. You're going to put me here. Well, I'm going to be the guy who takes control. And it was very much a case of, I'm strong. I'm in control. I can deal with this. I'm going to show you all.
Well, it seems like you were doing that already with when you were living with your mother.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you know about the Enneagram test. It's like a personality test. I'm a number 8, which is an active controller. So essentially, the way I operate is, if I can do it better than you, then I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to delegate it. If I'm kind of in any position where I can take control and authority, I will. I'm a natural leader. And you know, that comes with pros and cons. It totally does. There are some times where
I laugh because that reminds me so much of myself.
Yeah,
I've only recently learned to really delegate because you got to learn to get out of your own way at sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Particularly when you're running a wrestling company and there's so many voices trying to feed into that. That's a whole other beast. But yeah, so that, you know, it served me well in different seasons, and it has come with its own, you know, negative aspects. You know, my wife will often tell me that in the way that, like, with my daughters, there's sometimes where there's just some things you can't control, Gaz. Your daughters are going to do what they want to do. And if that stresses you out, that's my problem to deal with, and I need to learn to temper myself. But yeah, so I am very go-getter, very straight talking, very determined, very kind of dogged with, if I'm going to make something happen, I'll make it happen. Hence, you know, GT Ministries, the BBC, whatever else seems to come our way. A lot of that has come down to me just being like, I need the world to know about this, so I'm going to tell them.
So you're the founder of GT Ministries.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did that come about?
So I've been a pro wrestler for 12 years, and I started wrestling training in Blackburn at a company called RWL, which is the Radical Wrestling League. And similar to a good friend of mine, Jack Johnson, within about 6 months of me doing that, I was already getting booked for shows. Was it too soon? Potentially. But a lot of them were saying that I had the stuff you couldn't teach, like the personality and the character. So they could teach me how to run the ropes and bump and do moves safely. The rest of it was stuff that was innately kind of there. So they were like, Gaz, you are a character. You can control a crowd. You can do this. We just need to teach you how to do it properly. So I ended up working shows. And I did that for a long time. And then I got involved in Christian ministry. I started working for a charity called Christians Against Poverty. So I was kind of touring the country, speaking at churches, doing events where I was sharing my testimony and inviting people to come to faith. And I found everyone, when they found out I was a wrestler, they were really interested, and more so interested, particularly young men. And so they were coming to me going, okay, I've heard your story. This has happened to me. You're a wrestler. You're really cool. I paid attention because you're a wrestler. And I thought, okay, there's a bridge here that needs to be connected.
So you thought, let's mush them together.
Exactly. No, exactly. So I that's exactly what it was. I went to a conference called New Wine, and it was in Shepton Mallet, down in the south of the country. And I was there with work, running an exhibition stand in a cafe, and which is interesting. I mean, I could tell you guys so many stories that when people go, who's Gaz Thompson? Why is he running a wrestling company? And I could be like, well, I ran venues for 3 years for this giant organization with 6,000 seater venues. I did exhibition stands where I used to sell. I've done public speaking in front of thousands of people, which people don't see. And then they go, oh, well, Gaz is just a wrestler running his own wrestling company. And I'm like, no, actually, I've got all this background stuff going on. So I saw these guys who were doing weightlifting. So they had this guy on the bench, and he's doing press, he's doing bench presses, and the weight's getting heavier and heavier. And in between that, they had these two like London gangsters. And one of them was like, "Oh, I used to be a bouncer. Yeah, I used to get in fights all the time. And then I found Jesus. Jesus came into my life." And so he started going on about his story. And I thought, hang on a second, they've done something here. The hook was the powerlifting, but then they were sharing their stories and sharing Jesus. So I was like, right, well, if I ran my own wrestling show, I can control the content. So if I do a couple of matches, then a testimony slot, bang, there's the gospel, couple more matches. And then you then get into, what's called the powers of persuasion, which is like, how do you maneuver a crowd into a way of like actually giving authority to people? So a lot of criticism comes my way where they say, oh, Gaz, it's the Gaz show. And I'm like, well, I'm sharing my testimony and I'm a wrestler. So if I'm in the first segment giving authority to the church leader in the church, then I'm then doing my testimony. You get the emotional response. Then I'm in the main event. They want me to win and they stick around till the end. If I wasn't underpinning either one of those things, the other thing doesn't work. So you kind of have to do all of them together. So when you get into the psychology of how to do that with a crowd, not just a character, and then you then figure in the character and the church leader and the church as a whole, you then see how it works. But a lot of people just watch and go, it's Gaz. It's got Gaz all over it. So, well, of course it does, because it's my story and it's my thing. And it's kind of like, I'm here to put the authority on the church so that when you hear about Jesus and you say yes, that the church then can follow up with you and keep you going and get you involved in something like a course or a home church or get you on to Sundays or whatever, because I'm going to go off somewhere else. So we used to tour all over the country doing that. And then we found ourselves a home at Fountains, set up the wrestling school, started running monthly events, and then that's where kind of I think really we've kind of exploded. Then obviously the BBC got involved in a few different things like that, has then kind of given us our base to kind of get the message out there. And now we're baptizing people. We've seen about nearly just shy of 30 people come to faith since April of last year. So in a year, 30, which is pretty decent in British Christian circles. Like that's really good. And a lot of them are journeying with us. And some of the guys have journeyed with me for years, like Jack Johnson. I've journeyed with him for about a year and a half since I brought him into GTM. But then you've got Joel Cobra, who I've known because I used to wrestle his brother 10 years ago. So like there's guys there who have gone on a massive long journey with us, and some that have only been very short. But they will all come back to you and say, well, actually, it wasn't just a church setting. It was the relationships that were formed. It was the 2 a.m. phone calls with me when stuff's going really bad. It was seeing me at a show and like me praying with them before a match, or kind of working with them to give them opportunities, to get them on the BBC, to take them to London, to get them on radio, to be like, look, I'm investing in you because you are showing me that you really want this. And so kind of building all that stuff around that as well. So it is really a massive community feel at GT Ministries, and that's intentional because I want it to feel like a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're helping people with confidence issues, depression. I mean, literally absolutely everything. I mean, for you personally, you've got to be proud of that,
Oh, yeah, totally. I think in Christian circles, we're taught to be humble and we're taught to give glory back to God. And I certainly do. And I think, like I said in that short clip that you showed, I'm using my own past experiences, which I know for some people, they find that hard to say, well, if God is good, how can you go through all this bad stuff? And I'm like, well, actually, God probably knew that I'm the kind of guy who would just battle on and get through it. But now I'm using it to help others. And now,
do you mind if I share my testimony now?
Yes, brother, go for it. I'm excited
to
hear it.
So can you show our logo?
Sure.
So what's on the other side of the fingers? What gets the score? Easy. We curse despair, prejudice, and fear, and we put it in your hearts to keep fighting. So the logo is a bit of a trap. Yeah. It's made to be like, oh, they're badass. They've got a cool group. And actually, we're fingering all the things that we hate. And I don't get opportunity very often to share Jesus, because I want to just welcome everyone, and I pastor them through love and community, and when I get the chance, I'll tell them about Jesus. And but a couple of years ago, before I founded this brand, I was riding my bike home from work. I work in the graveyard shift at the time. This was morning, and I'm riding my bike home. It's about a half-hour ride, and I get to this. I'm in this bike lane. There's other bike riders there, and this guy's turning into the parking lot. And so he waits for me, but the other guy thinks that he's waiting for him. And as I go by, he runs me over.
Oh, wow.
And my ankle is facing the other way. And so it's like completely like broken in like 3 spots. And I'm going to need a rod in there. And so I get surgery. They rushed me to the hospital. I'm in there for a couple of days. And I find out that I have cancer.
Wow.
And it's been there for a little while, and it's on my kidney. And so I'm freaking out. Not only have I got a broken leg now, and it's got a rod in there, I'm learning to use crutches and all that. Now I find out that I have cancer. And I'm really trying to, and they put me back at home, and I'm really trying to work through this. And it's this dark time. I'm like, God, where are you? And I don't really see him too much. And I'm like, I had a friend overdose. He relapsed and overdosed and died. And I was like, I prayed. I was like, God, I can't have one more bad thing. I can't have one more bad thing. Please give me something good. And the very next day, I'm kind of sitting having a coffee, and my phone rings, and it says Vancouver Canucks Sports and Entertainment. This is the hockey team in my town, and they're telling me I won a contest for helping in the community, and I end up going to meet some players. I get through some autographs and all that kind of stuff. And my relative was in town, and we went together, and it was like God had answered a prayer. Not only that, so that was just kind of like where it started to turn for me. And got surgery. They removed the cancer. And not only that, is I got a bunch of money for getting hit by a car.
Nice.
So now it's pretty much my retirement fund. And like I hadn't had a doctor or anything before that, so now I got a doctor and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost like the car hit was for my own benefit. And I couldn't see it because, like, if I hadn't been hit by a car, the cancer would have been growing and to a point where, but they were able to catch it early. And it really birthed this thing that we have here at F and Wrestling. And I wanted to like have a community where we would kind of like you, where we have a family.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that. That's certainly God working in mysterious ways, isn't it? And what you've shown there is you've shown the hindsight. So in the moment you're thinking, I've just been hit by a car. This is terrible. My ankle's broken. Oh, now I've got cancer. This is terrible. I've got cancer. And then God's like, no. Wait a second.
Yeah.
You can remove it. It's early. If you hadn't been hit by the car, this wouldn't have happened. You asked you prayed, this has happened. And so we don't find that out until after the fact, you know? And I think that's why us sharing our stories is really important, because when we're sharing our stories, we go, well, this is what was happening to me here. But then God stepped in, Jesus stepped in, and this has now happened here, because we've got the hindsight. We've been through it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that encourages people, that inspires people, that makes them think about it a bit differently. It gives them some solace in their own moments of pain and grief and sorrow and whatever else is going on, for them to go, well, actually, is there a good thing coming? Is Jesus just waiting for the right guy to come into my life, or waiting for the right thing to happen?
Well, you know
Or-
the story of the gates called Beautiful, right?
Yeah,
So that guy was. People lose the context of this because he was healed by Peter and John, right?
Mm.
But Jesus walked by him every day.
yeah, yeah.
That's what people don't really put in context. It wasn't his time yet. Jesus didn't heal him. So he must have been
Yeah.
like, I'm never getting healed. But then Peter and John come after Jesus has gone away. So it's like it was building up and his moment was there.
Yeah.
Gareth, you were speaking about obviously your favorite story from the Bible.
Yeah, so there's this one story where there's this paralyzed guy in a city, in a town, and Jesus has gone to the town and he's in a house and he's chatting with like the Pharisees and the scholars, the vicars of their day, and this guy's out there in the street, and actually his friends try to get him in the house and they can't get in because it's too full, and then they climb on the roof and literally kick the roof in, lower this guy down to Jesus and put him in front of him, and the guy gets healed. And I always imagine him kind of running back and going, "Hey, I'm healed, remember me?" Like sharing his story. But actually, what I love about that story is the fact that he needed his friends to bring him into contact with Jesus and to put him there and for him to be healed. And so when I go back over my story, like I have so many guys who I can point out and go, actually, he came and spoke to me and introduced me to Jesus. He came in to be a part of my life to help me deal with my stuff and help me get healed from my past or whatever else. And so I'm really keen to have not only those guys that I'm helping, which, you know, those are the guys at the academy, the people who attend the shows, people who are kind of part of just my everyday life. I've got a whole bunch, like my own disciples, if you want to call them that. And then I've got my guys who are above me that I go to, that I'm like, okay, I need help from you too. So I've got like, oh man, I'd say maybe 16 to 20 different mentors from different spheres, some in politics, some in PR, some in business, some in charity, some in ministry, some just guys who are just really cool, doing crazy stuff. You know, and that to me kind of keeps me fed, but then makes me able to then feed others as well, which is, I think, is a really cool dichotomy to have.
Absolutely. So we'll move along, obviously, to the wrestling side. So I want to talk about Gareth Angel, the wrestler. Now, how did all this idea come about?
Well, so my faith journey and my wrestling journey both evolved alongside each other. I think is a great way to put it. When I first started training, I was crazy Gaz, and I was a big Jeff Hardy mark. And I used to have, you know, I've kept the long hair and the undercut, but I had like purple streaks in it, and I pretty much wore Jeff Hardy's gear, and I did pretty much Jeff Hardy's moveset. It was ridiculous. I look back and I'm like, guys, you absolute idiot.
Do you do the ladder bits and all that?
Oh, I did it all. My
Oh,
body is a mess from all that stuff, I tell you. I used to do, you know, 450s off ladders. I used to get put through tables, get smashed with metal chairs, and kendo sticks and baking trays and whatever else you could find. So I've got a bit of a hardcore wrestling past and history, and a bit of backyard wrestling as well. But then when I started training, I started realizing that there's so much more to it than just crazy spots. There's so many nuances in the storytelling. And so Crazy Gaz as a character, there was no storytelling to be had. It was pretty much just a lunatic who showed up and just did whatever. I was like, kind of similar to like Darby Allin. Who's Darby Allin? He just shows up and does stupid stuff. If you're a Darby Allin fan, I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of his.
So you're looking more to do the Bret Hart thing now.
Less so Bret Hart as well. I think Bret Hart was a very technically sound wrestler, told stories in the ring. I'm kind of more like your John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, The Rock kind of storyteller. I've got it on the mic. I can get a crowd to do what I want. In the ring, I don't have to have a flashy moveset to emote from people. I get some of the best reactions most shows that I'm on, and I'm not doing ridiculous stuff. I'm doing very
okay, so more
stuff.
like Jericho then.
Yeah. You could relate to Jericho as well. Triple H even to a degree. Like he's technically sound. He can do some stuff, but he doesn't need to be flying off ladders. He doesn't need to be doing stupid things. But whenever he does, it feels more special.
Yeah.
You know, so whenever I do get into a casket match or a last man standing, and I can pull out like some of my old hardcore wrestling because I'm proficient in it, it's like, oh, actually, oh, Gaz is showing the dark side. Angel's going a little violent. Oh, this is interesting. Isn't he supposed to be all about faith, love, faith, love, and honor and respect. Now he's all about like, oh, okay, he's getting aggressive. Oh, hang on a second, he's showing a different side. So I kind of bring all of that into my character. So I've had to evolve it over time to, yes, I quote scripture. Yes, I pray with my opponents. Yes, we've kind of toyed it with the religious aspect of who I am, trying not to cheat and trying to be kind of, a clean wrestler in that regard. And having guys like try to make me cheat being like one of the storytelling devices we can have. Both Jack Johnson and Disciple recently at GTM have like offered me a weapon and gone, have a free shot. And I've gone, I'm not going to do that. And, kind of, but Disciple does have a shot coming, I tell you, because he put me on the shelf. But that's another story for another day. And so kind of using those devices. So the Gareth Angel character then became about, well, how do I do something different in wrestling that is more so about me as a real person? And so like having pray, eat, wrestle, repeat on my t-shirt, quoting scripture, my profile page, talking about me going and speaking at churches that are local to where the shows are, or kind of being on the radio and TV and talking about my faith and my journey openly. That means that when people come see me at wrestling, they're like, this guy was homeless, this guy had this guy had that. So as a babyface, I've already got the sympathetic emotion from the crowd because they've seen me and heard of me, or they've journeyed with me through some of that stuff. So it just makes me being the babyface so much easier. And it makes having really good opponents opposite me really easy. So when you play all that in, it's kind of like my real life story has helped me become a better babyface because it bolsters what I'm doing. And then my faith gives me a very legitimate kind of anchor to be like, no, this guy is a man of God. This guy does go to church. This guy does, because I've seen it and I've heard it and I've seen him on radio and whatever. So all of that has evolved into Gareth Angel now becoming Gareth Angel Thompson. And that was kind of off the back of the BBC. So I used Google Analytics to see what people were searching for when they were watching the documentary or trying to find it. And they were searching for like wrestling church, which is obviously kind of the anchor of the program. But then they were also searching for Gareth Angel Thompson. So they weren't searching for Gareth Angel or Gareth Thompson. It was the full thing. So I was like, right, okay, so if they're searching for that, they're going to come across a bunch of different pages. So I was like, right, well, I need to kind of mold them into one and make that the page that they land on so that the Google Analytics is kind of leaning towards that. So that makes sense. So then I've become Gareth Angel Thompson, kind of like Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Right.
But that does mean I can cross between both worlds. So, I can be in the wrestling world as Gareth Angel, but Gareth Angel Thompson, and people won't think too much of it, and people still call me Angel. But then I can still show up to a church and do a preach in front of 1,000 people and be like, I'm Gareth Thompson. Some people know me as Gareth Angel, and like kind of it just makes it so much easier to do that. So that's been the evolution of the character, and so now
how does it work to be a heel in this situation?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So I don't get to play heel very often. But when I do, and I have done, and I do enjoy heel. I watched your interview with Kirsty Love, and obviously she said the similar thing. Like, it is a lot of fun playing a heel.
Mm-hmm.
As a heel, I try not to outright cheat, but kind of just be very mouthy, very kind of like leaning on the religious aspect, going, well, I'm a Lion of Judah, I'm a child of God, no one can beat me, and then that immediately gets a heel reaction because people are like, oh, of course someone could beat you, particularly those that don't believe in God, because then they immediately start having a go at me, which is great. But if you want to watch something, which is a really cool way of how I've been a good heel, if you get a chance, it's a shame we never really got to finish this story, but if you go on YouTube and you find Radical Wrestling League, RWR, the place where I originally first started training, they had like a 1.5 year run of shows in Blackburn, Darwin. And they had me as a heel who had a vision before every match. And then I would tell my opponent, I've had a vision that this is going to happen. I don't want to do that to you. It might be breaking your leg. It might be choking you out. It might be leaving you and the referee having to call the match. But I'm going to win. And I'm going to give you an out. I'll pin you. I'll still win. But if you go through this fight, this is going to happen. And so the genius behind that was whatever I said happened actually happened. So as a heel for over a year, I was undefeated. And every time I came out, I said, this is going to happen. Everyone there was kind of like, no, it's not, boo, 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 oh, Angel, boo, boo. And then I'm like, no, it is. It is going to happen. I've seen it, and then it happened. And so
I love it.
I got heat because I was arrogant in the way I was saying, "Oh, I'm gonna break this guy's leg," and they're all like, "No," and then I break his leg, and I'm like, "I told you I'm gonna. When are you gonna believe me? I told you I'm gonna break his leg." So I wasn't like cheating. I wasn't being horrible. Like I was literally just going, "Nah, this is the truth, and you're gonna have to deal with it." And then eventually I won a Rumble, which was really cool because we did this thing where before the Rumble I had a singles match to open the show, and then so I said to the guy, I was like, "I'm gonna beat you, and this is what's gonna happen. Then I'm gonna enter the Rumble." And I'd been given number 1. So I'm like, what you need to understand about this Rumble is I'm going to win the Rumble. I'm going to be the alpha and the omega of this Rumble. And then I'm going to go on to win the world title because I've seen it. It's all in a vision. I've seen it. And so I entered number 1, alpha. Halfway through, I got eliminated. And everyone was like, oh, it's not come true. He's been eliminated. But I had like a little faction. I had a couple of guys who'd we called ourselves the Way, which is annoying because it was long before Johnny Gargano had the Way thing, long before the Mandalorian came along. And I'm like, you all stole our stuff. Because a lot of Jesus's first followers were called like followers of the Way. You know, that's where I came up with
I know, and Star Wars, I get so upset.
And Star Wars nicked it.
They're taking it from the Bible.
I know, right? I know. Anyway. So the storytelling is dead now. But anyway, so halfway through, I got eliminated, and at the end, number 30 was one of my followers. So as he came out, I was like, no, give me your spot. So we swapped, and I came in number 30, and then won it. So I was the alpha number 1, and the omega number 30.
That is brilliant. And welcome back to the Magic of Wrestling. We are talking to Gareth Angel Thompson. Now, you spoke a bit about your faith, GTM a little bit, but I want to talk about when you were younger. You said that you were being captivated by wrestling. What did you like about it in particular?
So for me, it's always been about the characters and the storytelling. So I used this example recently at our training school that if you watched the Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns match from WrestleMania, I can barely remember any of the actual match, but I do remember the story points and I do remember the feeling. So it was kind of validated to me that, again, it's often less so about what you're doing in the ring and more so about the emotional journey of the audience. So I used to love watching like a lot of the Attitude Era stuff with the main event guys, where it was different stories and a lot of it wasn't happening in the ring. A lot of it was kind of, their interactions with different characters, the promos. But for me, it was seeing those characters come alive, seeing those characters go through trials and issues and seeing how they grew and developed. So I was a massive Shawn Michaels fan when I was a kid, although he was a heel at the time. I just loved everything he brought to the table, and I thought, this guy's great. He could do it in the ring, but also like he had so many great like story moments. In the Rumbles, like they always use the same clip of him just touching his foot and then eliminating British Bulldog. The rest of that Rumble, do you remember it? No, but do you remember that bit? Of course you do. So it's kind of, I've always been one for moments and storytelling. And that's been massively influenced by some of those guys that I used to watch. So a massive Shawn Michaels fan, massive fan of The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Later on, like there were guys like Brock Lesnar when he first came in. I thought, like, this guy's just an absolute beast and a monster. I love him just wrecking people. And then, later on, like CM Punk and Jericho, and even to this day, like Roman Reigns, I think is just phenomenal storyteller. So yes, I kind of have followed quite a lot of wrestling in my time, and I do watch other stuff now. I watch Impact, I watch AEW, I watch UKW, I watch all my local independent wrestling scene. I watch a bit of Japan, I watch a bit of Mexico when I can. Mexico I find harder. There's a lot less storytelling in Mexico. But in Japan as well, you need like long-term storytelling in Japan, so you need to be watching it for years to fully get the stories, which is
and awesome. You just clap, you can't cheer.
Oh, I know, right? I couldn't imagine. You'd have to mentally prepare yourself so differently as a wrestler to perform in front of that audience, because it would be, they say it sometimes in big stadiums where it's like open air stadiums. Some of the American wrestlers say like you don't hear the clap. You don't hear the applause. So I can imagine in in Japan, it being a similar thing where you do something, you expect there to be a pop or kind of a reaction, and then you don't get it, and you just get or what I love when they go, oh, and you're just like, okay, they must have liked that, I think. So yeah, no, it is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, you're a family man, as we see in the documentary. We'll put a link in that description there because I feel like it's really does it justice.
Yeah,
How do you
sure.
juggle work, family, and wrestling? I mean,
How do I juggle? There's the question. So interestingly, my first daughter Isabella, she was born just before lockdown, so February 2020, Valentine's Day. What a day to be born. And my second daughter Isla was born December 29th, 2021. So they're both still very young. They both demand a lot. And for a long time when I was running GT Ministries, I was doing it in my spare time. So I was working full time, obviously a husband and a father, and church commitments as well. So I'm preaching, I'm doing different things, I'm editing videos for the live stream, I'm running a ministry, I'm dealing with a lot of people's issues and problems. So there was a lot of mental and emotional energy being given out in a lot of different areas. But GTM is kind of, like I say, it's its own special place where I can be preparing for it all through the week and doing little bits in between things. But then on the day, like, the energy comes and you're just there and you're in it and you're like, oh, come on, here we go. The wife and kids are at home. Everything's fine. I don't have to think about work. I'm just in the zone. But a lot of it was spinning a lot of plates and being kind of like, oh, I can just do a match graphic in between answering a couple of emails. Or I can just, the wife will go to bed at 10 o'clock, the girls are asleep, I'll stay up for an extra hour and just do a bit of website editing. Or I'll render it, I'll get a video edited and leave it rendering overnight, stuff like that. So I always did again, what people don't see behind the scenes of GTM was all of the booking of the wrestlers, all of the production stuff, editing the videos, creating the match graphics, editing the website, doing the social media. I did all of that, so it was a case of like, yeah, I put a lot of my soul and energy into it. I delegated a few of that stuff recently. Has it been as good as I would have liked? No, but that's part of me learning to give things over and be like, okay, cool, yep, off you go, you can do that now. But that all feeds into the next steps for GTM and where we're going. I juggled very well on a part-time schedule, doing pretty much doing it in my spare time. I now have more time. I'm only working 15 hours a week, so I get the other 15 hours to really focus on it. But we're taking GTM to different levels over the next year, which is going to be phenomenal when that happens. Yeah.
That kind of obviously leads me to my next question, because I feel a little more
So.
as we begin to wind down. So what's the goals for obviously GTM? What's it long term and short term?
Okay, so short term is we are transitioning into a charitable incorporated organization. So what that means is we can take advantage of both charitable status and be a business that trades. So a lot of what we do at GTM is obviously based at Fountains, running a church, running a training school. We charge for the training school, so that's business. The wrestling church is charity because churches normally fall under charity. We're building something there, and we don't charge for for wrestling church, so it's free entry, so there is no business to be made there. So we're looking for people to invest in that and to want to see that grow and develop. We also
now, do you have a wrestling ring when you have the church?
Yeah. So honestly, watch the documentary, you'll see it. We have a wrestling ring, and then we've got a baptism pool right next to it. We've got a worship band off to the right, and then the wrestlers come out on the other side. But it's all on Facebook and YouTube. We live stream it also. You can watch it. It's all on our website as well, gtministries.co.uk. So the immediate goal is to get that charitable status sorted out, to be able to create a vehicle that people can give to, that people can support, that people can take advantage of. And then we're going to long term do wrestling church in different parts of the country. So we're going to find churches that we can partner with, and we'll say, hey, look, we'll bring a training school to you. We'll plant a training school. You'll then be reaching the local community. We'll do youth classes. We'll do adult classes, beginners, advanced, women's only, whatever, kind of expand all that. And then you then start running shows locally, either in partnership with the local promotion, or we'll just provide all the stuff for it. And then you then start running wrestling church as a bi-monthly event and start sharing the gospel and seeing people come to faith. So that's the model essentially that I've just explained. That's currently getting put into a graphic, and I've got a big booking next year in front of 13,500 people in Minehead that I'll be telling them all about it, and they're all church leaders, so that should see
Mhm.
us massively grow next year. But yeah, so that's kind of all. That's the long-term goal, is to have multiple wrestling churches slash GTM sites all over the country. And then we can then have like an NWA style world champion that tours the sites, and each site have their own champion that can be the only guy who challenges a world champ, and kind of have that going on as well. And
That's
then maybe
brilliant.
international. You never know. We could come to Canada. We could come to Vancouver and do something there. We could,
Yeah.
you
Let's do it.
I've got contacts
Let's
in.
partner up with Epping Wrestling.
Dude, let's do it. Honestly, I'm all for partnership. I'm all for partnership. That's one of the key things I think that British wrestling has not done very well over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I say to every promotion that I've worked for, or every promotion that I've connected with, if I'm coming to your neck of the woods as GTM, there is no point in me promoting GTM there. I might as well promote you. So let's get your trainees on the show. Let's get your training school plugged. Let's get your wrestlers. Let's get your ring. Let's give your main event guys a top spot, so that when I leave, all these people who are now wrestling fans, who were wrestling fans, that the church is promoted to, because you're not currently promoting through churches, is a whole new group of people that you can bring along. So I'm always open for partnerships. If there's any promoters out there that are listening, let me know. If there's any wrestlers out there who want to be on our shows, let me know, because if we're touring around, I'd rather use local talent than be shipping our crew everywhere, because it's more expensive. But yeah, so we've got all that going on as well. And that may potentially mean a brand change as well. We might need to look at a new name and stuff, mainly because GT Ministries is just so connected with me. Gaz Thompson, it's kind of where the GT came from. And Ministries, people look at it and they go, we don't even understand what that means. So, we need to have wrestling in there somewhere. So, like I say, I've got a charity lawyer I'm speaking with. I've got guys who've set up, national organizations that I'm good friends with. So I'm kind of working with them on how to best do this and model it well, and connect with certain churches and stuff. So all of that will happen in the next 6 to 8 months. You should see all that kind of kicking off, and then hopefully by the beginning of 2024, we should have a couple of sites set up, ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
We spoke about the Cody Rhodes match.
Yes.
Were you pissed off like the rest of us?
No, I think I wasn't, because I'm a storyteller. So I was thinking, where they're going to go with it. That was my question. It wasn't, this is terrible, they've missed the spot. Because you could have said the same about Drew at Clash at the Castle, right? You could have been like, Drew should have won then because all the momentum was on his side. I don't agree. I think let's let them tell that story. Let's let them see where it goes. If they're splitting the world titles, this is what I do. So this is Gaz Booker coming in here, right? Yep. What I would do is, I know that Cody Rhodes as a character, this is what I love about storytelling, as a character, he's got a thing for the WWE Championship. Doesn't care about the Universal. He's got a thing about the WWE Championship. He wants to win Deagle. He wants to win that one title. His dad never won it. That's his goal. The Universal title is irrelevant. So you get to Money in the Bank. You have Cody win Money in the Bank. And when he cashes in, he only cashes in for the WWE Championship. Roman's Universal title is the one that's going to go 1,000 days. So you keep the Universal title on him, keep him running with that until he gets to The Rock later down the year, or Jey Uso could be a guy to take it off him, or Seth Rollins takes it off him because Seth's a bit pissed he didn't get the main event spot, and you might need to appease a talent like that because he's very good. But Cody, give him the Money in the Bank, let him cash in at SummerSlam, but only for the WWE Championship, and win it. And then you split the titles in a natural way. Roman's taken a loss, but he's still a world champ, and you get to everyone wins when you do it that way. That's what I'd do.
There you go. So obviously we put on Instagram that you're coming on the show. Some fans obviously got asked, and we got one question from a fan, and he said, how do you think the trainees of the academy will do once they begin on shows?
I think when they get to a point where they're on shows, that they will do better than most would expect, I think. Mainly because we're not just letting them do what they want. We're not just letting them get on shows before they're ready. I've seen, I'm not going to name names because I don't think that's wise, but there are some promotions that have training schools that run events regularly and have their trainees on the events regularly way before they're ready, way before they've even got gear. They're still running around in t-shirts and Venom kick pads. And I'm like, they've got no gimmick. Their moveset is very basic. They're still making a lot of very basic mistakes. Their timing's off. Is really poor quality. I don't want my trainees to be put out at their worst. I want them to be put out at their best when they're ready. And that means they'll have a gimmick. That means that they'll have a story booked in for them to debut with and to run with. They'll have vignettes done. They'll have decent promo images. They'll be on the website. They'll get social media accounts set up. All of that will be ready before they go. They'll have merch ready before they go. And then when we introduce them, they're introduced well, and they're put in the best light, and they're put in with wrestlers who can help them learn on the job. So I know who's asked that question. He's eager to debut, and he keeps pestering in my ear, and I keep telling him, you're not ready. And we will, Sean Only, who's our other coach, and we've got other people who dip in and do seminars and stuff as well. We've all said to all the trainees from day one, this isn't a 6 months jobby and you're on shows. This is a long-term investment in your physical health, your mental health, and when you get ready to be on shows, you're ready. And you have an almost complete package. There'll always be things to work on and develop. But we don't want to put you out before you're ready.
There you go. So hopefully that answers the question. So I've got one final question is, looking back for everything you've been through, would you have done anything different at all?
Oh, man. Oh, so much. And I think, you have to be open and honest with yourself. There's plenty of bookings I wish I'd never took for shows that were just an absolute shambles. When I showed up and I got told, oh, you got 10 minutes and you're going over. When are we on? Oh, you're on second. Okay, the show's supposed to start at 7, don't start till 8 o'clock. There's barely anybody in the place. The promoter's losing their mind. I'm kind of just like, oh man, I wish I'd never shown up. And so there's a lot of bookings I wish I hadn't took, because I think in some areas it has slowed some parts of my career down at times. There are a lot. I kind of wish I'd got my kind of physical health in a better place much earlier on in my journey. I wish I'd been in the gym more often. I wish I'd learned so much more of the taxing part of your body, not having to do as many mental stuff so early on in my career, and learning more of the storytelling stuff earlier. I wish I'd switched to trunks much sooner. I had pleather pants for about 2 years, and then I switched to tights, and both of them were just terrible. Like sweating in them, I kept having to pull the pants up all the time, tripping over them. Man, I was like, oh, I wish I'd just got that sorted much sooner. Because I love trunks. You get so much more flexibility in trunks, and you just look smarter, I think. And I kind of wish I'd maybe at times given it more energy as well. There were certain seasons of my life where, I felt too busy to get to training as often as I could have, or to wrestle as often as I would have liked. Because I often have wrestling bookings thrown at me, and I'm like, well, I'm with the wife and kids this weekend, or I'm speaking at a church this weekend, or I'm at a conference or something else. I had to say no to a lot of stuff. I kind of wish I'd said yes to more stuff as well. So lots of things, man. I mean, if you went through month by month my whole career, I could tell you, yeah, that was a mistake. That was a good idea.
Yeah.
That could have been done better. And I think any wrestler who's been around a long time will have regrets in their life and in their career. But I think, we need to weigh that up with the good stuff, like the kids who come running up to me with my T-shirt on and tell me how I've inspired them.
I want to put you on the spot a bit here.
Yeah.
So there might be people watching that have thought about Jesus, but they haven't really put much investment into finding out about him. There might be someone who's interested in maybe going down the road and learning about God and going to their local church. Can you tell us a good reason why they should look into that?
I think that if you look at some of the people around you who are Christians, if you have them, if you don't, look at me. I can tell you through my journey and my story, if you look at where I came from, abused as a kid, alcoholic mother, homeless at 15, bullied, no GCSEs, failed marriage, in debt, unemployed, depressed. If you were to look at that guy then, and then look at this guy now, and you see all the differences and the different stuff, I could tell you that was Jesus and Christians in my life that made that happen. So if you're sat there toying with this idea of maybe I should go to church, maybe I should go speak to a Christian that I know, maybe I want to learn more, maybe I want to start reading my Bible, or I want to start praying more often. If you do it, you will see things change. If you don't, they won't. Simple as that. And whatever that looks like for you, in whatever situation you're in, just reach out, connect. Not every church is going to be for you. Try another one. Not every Christian you meet, you're going to connect with. Try another one. There will be someone out there that you can connect with. And don't ever deny Jesus an opportunity to work in your life. The fact you're listening to this podcast right now tells me that maybe this is one of those moments where we happen to have a former pastor on, and Liam's brought me on because he's heard my story, and here I am going, you want to know about Jesus? Like, there's no coincidence there in my books. There never is. I'm about to do a preach this Saturday at Wrestling Church about the road to Emmaus, which is after Jesus has died, there's a couple of guys just on a road leaving Jerusalem, going to this place called Emmaus, which is, they don't even know where it is. It was that insignificant. But anyway, it's in the Bible, so it has its significance. And Jesus just appears next to them, and they don't know it's him. And so they're kind of walking along, and they're saying to him, do you know about this Jesus guy and everything that happened? Do you know? Like, oh, we need to tell you about what happened just now in Jerusalem. And they're walking along, and then they get to this house, and Jesus then starts breaking bread with them. And then they realize, oh, hang on a minute, that's him. That's the same guy. Oh, when he was talking to us about the scriptures, we kept, oh, you're Jesus. And then he disappears. He's like, oh, you've got me. I'm gone. And then he disappears. And then he appears to them again later when they get back to Jerusalem. But what I'm saying is, in that story, you're getting a kind of sneak peek. I know this is going out after the preach, so it's cool. What we don't realize sometimes in our life is that Jesus has been there all along.
Yeah.
And we've been talking to him all along. And we've been having people in our lives who have been there because Jesus sent them all along.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to open our eyes and recognize, oh, that's Jesus, or that's God, or whatever you want to pin it down to.
Yeah.
And when we do that and we have our eyes opened like that, why would you not then take advantage of that situation? Why would you not then follow that? Because you've just gone, wow. If you walk away from that, that's ridiculous in my book. But if you see it and you go, whoa, that's Jesus. This podcast is Jesus speaking to me. That thing that happened when that guy came and ran over my leg and I went in and got my kidney fixed. That was, you can do that. So it's just having your eyes open to that moment. And maybe this is one of those moments for you. Get on with it. Go find a church, find a Christian, have a chat.
Yeah.
And that is a great thing to end on. So before we do our outro, Gareth, is there anything you want to plug, my friend?
Yeah, so I would just say find us on the socials, GT Ministries UK, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're over it all. Find our website, gtministries.co.uk. There's ways that you can engage, watch previous events. You can give if you want to. We're on Patreon. We're on Buy Me a Coffee. It's all kicking off. And just keep your eyes on us, because this year there's going to be some big changes, and hopefully by next year.
If you send Liam all your links, we'll put them in the description.
Yes,
sure.
absolutely.
I can do that.
So that pretty much wraps up our interview. So, kind of dry, do you want to tell everybody about where they can find us?
You can find us on effingwrestling.com. You can buy a shirt.
Yeah.
Of course, there's our lovely Natalia Markova. She is the face of effing wrestling. And of course, if you love old school wrestling, and we know you do, we run Adrian Adonis's store. So this is one of the things that happened to us. He just kind of fell in our lap, and God gave the legacy of Adrian Adonis to us and give a friendship with Natalia Markova. I've actually been able to share the gospel with Natalia Markova. So I'm in her DMs talking about Jesus with her.
Oh dear, this is brilliant. This has been an absolutely amazing story. Gareth, thank you so much for sharing your stories, and I wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Love you all.
Not a problem. So on behalf of me, Liam Wakelin, Canada Dry, Gareth Angel Thompson, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all.
And remember to just keep fighting!